Welcome back to HQ. The NHL Trade Deadline ended at 3 p.m. Eastern today. Several teams were working to beat the scoreboard and make a move to bolster their Stanley Cup chances. Mikko Rantanen was a name. Brad Marchand, another. Breaking news into HQ. The Florida Panthers are acquiring him from the Boston Bruins per multiple reports. He's a four-time All-Star, spent his entire 16-year career in Boston. Marchand has 422 career goals, which ranks 9th among active players. Again, this just came down minutes ago, and it's still pending a call. It's in a queue, and let's defer to our guy Pete Blackburn to give us some more insight into what's happening on this trade deadline that has come and gone here. So let's first start with Brad Marchand. How surprised, shocking, what superlative would you use for this one?
Stunned, absolutely stunned. Like it started feeling like Brad Marchand being traded was a real possibility late yesterday. It started moving in that direction from a lot of the insiders, the way that they were talking about it. But all of the indications that we got leading up to the final minutes of the deadline was that the Bruins wanted to push him out west. They wanted to send him probably as far west as possible to keep him away from the Eastern Conference. Instead, they end up trading him to the Florida Panthers, who have been kind of a nemesis and a pain in the butt for the Bruins for the past couple of years. They're obviously the reigning Stanley Cup champions. I think that's probably like a last-ditch effort that they didn't want to do. Ultimately, though, I think that it is a really perfect fit for Brad Marchand. He goes into that locker room that is already filled with thorns in the sides of opponents, and it's a big reason why the Panthers have been such a tough playoff team over the past couple of years. Like, you're talking about a playoff locker room that is going to include the likes of Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, and now Brad Marchand. Good luck playing against those guys and having any sort of good time doing it. So shout out to the Florida Panthers. They make a massive splash in the final minutes of the deadline. And this truly is the end of an era for the Bruins, and they are blowing it up big time, which I didn't truly expect. I expected them to be kind of soft sellers and keep some hope moving forward for the coming seasons. It really looks like they are pushing a hard reset button at this deadline.
Let's keep it with Boston before we move on back to the champs and what Marchand means to them, because it looks like they're still well positioned to make another deep run here. Pete, take me through the expectations for this Boston team going this year and what fell short for them to do what you're saying, what they're doing right now.
I mean, expectations were pretty high because, you know, this was a team that made the playoffs last year. They went out, they addressed a couple areas in need in Elias Lindholm at the center position, Nikita Zadorov on defense. They thought theoretically that they were going to be a better team this year moving forward. You know, maybe you're a little bit of a worse regular season team, but they felt like they were better positioned to compete in the playoffs. Obviously, they are not in that position right now. This season has been a disaster. You end up firing your coach in November, and you really have a ton of problems finding any consistency, any sort of detail-oriented game, and they just look like a mess pretty much night in, night out. And they decided to pull the plug here, and the way that they're doing it is pretty surprising. You know, you trade Brad Marchand to a division rival in the Florida Panthers. Not only that, you then a minute later, you trade Brandon Carlo to one of your other biggest division rivals in the Toronto Maple Leafs. So this is kind of waving a white flag if you're the Bruins. We have to wait to see what the returns are on those guys, but it doesn't really matter because this really does signify that this team is attempting either a rebuild or a retool.
Let's get back to Florida. Some Panthers fans are saying, boy, they just acquired my least favorite player of all time, even more than Tom Brady, but damn, he's a good fit for this group of rats. I know there's still a lot of pieces to put together in terms of team composition and everything, but where does the Marchand of Florida rank for you in terms of where the Panthers are maybe in the power rankings getting ready for another postseason run?
I think the Eastern Conference is wide open, and Brad Marchand absolutely makes them a better team. Like, he is still a very good player. Obviously, he's hurt right now. They may not get him back until the playoffs, but, like, you're talking about a team, assuming that Matthew Tkachuk and Brad Marchand can get healthy for the playoffs, Talking about a team that forechecks very hard, plays a really strong 200-foot game, has skill, has size, has grit, has nastiness, endearing nastiness when it comes to playoff hockey. Like there's a reason why they won the Stanley Cup last year. They returned largely the same team. I think they are well positioned, if everybody's healthy and ready to go, to defend that title, and especially in a wide open Eastern Conference. This is a huge opportunity and a huge get for the Florida Panthers and Brad Marchand.
Panthers and Bees playing in about 4 days, by the way. All right, let's move on here because Mikko Rantanen's another notable name here at the deadline. What are your thoughts with that deal?
I really like it for Dallas. I'm a big Logan Stankoven guy, but he's having a really down year. I think that he'll be fine. I think that he'll bounce back. But you're talking about a Dallas team that may be a piece or two away from winning a Stanley Cup, and they got better today. They swapped out Logan Stankoven. Maybe a loss in the long term. I don't know yet. Again, I think he'll be fine, but you're talking about Mikko Rantanen, who's one of the best wingers in all of hockey. They lock him up for 8 years, and now they just have an absolute wealth of offensive talent in that forward group. I have a little bit of remaining concern about their defense, specifically what they have on the right side, especially with Miro Heiskanen injured. But if they get Heiskanen back and they head into the playoffs with a head of steam, I don't see any reason why Dallas can't be the #1 team to beat in that Western Conference bracket. They are primed to make a real strong push, not only this year, but in years ahead. And I think that another big piece of their deadline day was not only getting Mikko Rantanen, but locking up Wyatt Johnston, who is going to be a massive, massive piece down the middle for that team for years to come now at a pretty solid number. I would imagine that Wyatt Johnston is probably the next captain, or a future captain of the Dallas Stars. So it is a huge day for Dallas and their hopes to push forward for a Stanley Cup, not only this year but years to come.
What's the early lean on who you think will lift Lord Stanley's Cup, Pete?
I will say I think there are a lot of teams in the Western Conference that I would put above the Eastern Conference, but really only one can come out of there, and they might just beat the crap out of each other on the way to the Stanley Cup final and have it be there for the taking for the Eastern Conference team. It's hard for me to say the Stars aren't the deserving favorites right now, given what they have across the board. The Avalanche also got much better, specifically down the middle on deadline day with the acquisition of Brock Nelson and Charlie Coyle. Like, I really like what they now have down the middle in terms of depth. They're primed. The playoffs, just please start them tomorrow, because you're looking at a lot of teams that just loaded up today and have me very excited to see what they can do in the postseason.
Before I let you go, let's talk about Alexander Ovechkin and his chase of Wayne Gretzky's record. I'm happy to say you and I have done 3 or 4 OV update / scoreboard goal watching, and I'm happy to say, Pete, that he's actually trimmed that deficit every time, so there's no jinx or anything on our end. But what do you think about Detroit tonight with the Caps?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the more attention that we pay to Ovi in this chase, it only fuels him. It's insane that we're even here in the first place talking about it, specifically after he broke his leg earlier in the season. And for me, you can't convince me that he's not getting it done before the end of the regular season here. He's going to be so motivated to just not enter into the playoffs in the offseason having to score a few more goals to get ahead of Wayne Gretzky. This guy is going to be pumping shots on net as we head down the home stretch here in an effort to surpass Wayne Gretzky. And I've learned to this point, never doubt Alex Ovechkin, no matter the circumstances, because all he does is pump goals into the back of the net. So tonight, every single game moving forward for the rest of the season, I'm going to just believe that he's scoring at will.
Yeah, the projections had him early April, but he continues to score, and then that date kind of creeps ever so closer to where we are now. Pete, certainly appreciate it. Pete Blackburn's been with us all day long here on CBS Sports HQ. There's that Red Wings Caps spread. 6 games on the slate. You go to Daily Faceoff. Logan Thompson confirmed there for Washington, and it looks like Ovi can get into more of that goal tally against Cam Talbot, but he has yet to be confirmed for tonight's game.